So it's just 6 o'clock now. I think we'll get started. I wanted to welcome everyone and thank you for joining us for our Healthy Holiday Recipes for Cancer Prevention and Support presentation. A few housekeeping items. As you saw when you signed in, we are recording this, so we will be able to share it in the future on CAT TV. So your cameras and microphones are disabled. If you have any questions or suggestions, please place them in the chat and I will share them with your panelists. Now on to the fun part. Our panelists this evening are family physician Dr. Robert Schwartz, registered dietitian Kristen Irace, and radiation oncologist Dr. Matthew Vernon. SVMC's executive chef Laura LaCroix joins us to show us just how easy it is to make her plant-based holiday recipes. I'll turn this over to Dr. Vernon.
Thanks, Rebecca. Hello, everybody, and thanks for joining us this evening. We had a very good reception the last time that we did this, and hopefully this is useful for everybody. Just a few words in introduction about healthy eating and as well as other healthy lifestyle choices. Obviously, within the cancer world here, there are a lot of different nuances that we can get into if you like, but sort of more in terms of general applicability. Really, it's difficult to overstate the importance of healthy eating and exercise, not only in preventing cancer, which that is a part of. Certain cancers certainly are related to the diet, as well as maintaining a healthy weight. But also receiving your cancer screenings, I'd like to put in a plug for as well. Certainly, you should speak with your doctor about what's appropriate for you. But things like pap smears and colonoscopies, mammography is super important as well, just as a matter of health maintenance. With that, like I said, we can talk more about the nuances about diet and exercise as part of cancer treatment. But first of all, I'll pass things over to Dr. Schwartz as well for a brief introduction.
Thank you, Matt. I appreciate that. I'm Bob Schwartz. I probably know many of you. I'm a family doctor in Manchester. And I wanted to speak just briefly on colorectal cancer screening. I've been working with Matt and Rebecca, some other folks from the American Cancer Society, and trying to increase our colorectal cancer screening rates. And part of that effort is just to get information out about what the screening options are. And in our area, we have 3 main screening options. The one that most people know about is colonoscopy. And that's an excellent way to screen. It can find polyps in the colon and remove them before they get a chance to turn to cancer. We know that essentially all colon cancer starts off as a polyp. And if we can catch that before it turns to cancer, we can actually prevent cancer from developing. So that's an important one. But we also have some less invasive options. One is a test called Cologuard. That's a test where you give a stool sample. You get sent a special kit, and then send your sample to a company that tests it for blood in the stool and also for DNA in the stool that might indicate a high-risk polyp. If you have a positive Cologuard, then you should get a colonoscopy to investigate that further. But if you have a negative Cologuard, you can avoid getting a colonoscopy. Those should be done every 3 years. You can also perform what's called FIT testing, which is a test for blood in the stool. That's performed every year. Some insurances actually send out FIT testing cards to the people that have insurance with them. So it's a pretty easy test to do in that respect. That's similar to Cologuard in that if you have a positive FIT test, you should get a colonoscopy to investigate it. So I would encourage everybody to think about being consistent in getting colorectal cancer screening. You can talk to your regular doctors more about it. And choose what's right for you. And I'm happy to answer any questions at the end, or if you want to chat with me directly during the presentation. Thank you, and I'll turn it over to Kristen.
Hi, I'm Kristen. I'm a registered dietitian here at SVMC. For people in cancer treatment, plant-based diet, which is what we're going to be talking about tonight, can really help support positive treatment outcomes. It can also help with side effect management. So I'm going to highlight some of the ingredients that Laura is going to be using today in her recipe demos. Some you might even use on a daily basis and not even realize the potential health benefits for cancer prevention and for cancer support. So I'll let Laura start with her first recipe.
Hi everybody, welcome. I'm so glad you're joining this Zoom again. We had so much fun last time. I do like to keep my demonstrations very casual, so make sure to ask questions in the chat box. And as I go through the items, like Kristen said, she'll chime in on the benefits. So you have the recipes ahead of time, so it gives you a chance to look at them. What I like to tell everybody ahead of time, these aren't written in stone. If you want to edit them to your likes, at this point, some people know what they like, what they dislike. So I do use a lot of garlic. I use a lot of Mrs. Dash. I try to keep things on the healthier side and make sure you get the most benefits out of the ingredients that I'm going to be using tonight. So as you look at the recipes that you have, we're going to start with one that Kristen gave me, and it's edamame hummus. It's very, very easy to make. And as I go through it and the ingredients, Kristen will talk to you about it. So I do have it, on the table here, already made. I made it ahead of time so you can take a look at it. You can serve it with fresh vegetables. Some people serve it with pita chips, but I'm going to make it for you right here. And as I go through the ingredients, feel free to chime in and ask questions, and the docs can talk about the benefits as well. And maybe, give different ideas on how you would make it, would be, anything. I'm open to suggestions. So first of all, we have edamame beans right here. Beautiful green color for the holidays. So one thing that I do like to do is, you can look at my table, I love an array of bright colors. So that's really going to add to your holiday decor on your tables. So we're going to start with 14 ounces of edamame beans. They come frozen in the frozen section, so you're just going to thaw them out. You're going to boil them. I did them in the microwave for the 18-minute instructions that it does say. They get really, really soft, so it makes them easy to process in the food processor. So I'm going to put 14 ounces right in the food processor. And what's really easy about it is everything goes in at once. 14 ounces. So Kristen talked about the beans are delicious and the benefits of those.
Yeah, and so a lot of edamame, they're immature soybeans. And so one of the big questions I get asked about nutrition is about soy and its effect on cancer and cancer growth. So studies have shown that moderate intake of soy in food form does not increase cancer growth. Where you kind of want to be careful is a lot of the soy protein supplements, just because they can be so concentrated. Those are where there's no necessary clinical guidelines right now about soy, but those would be the ones I would try to avoid that in the really concentrated forms. But something like edamame, it's a great source of plant-based protein. There's about 18 grams of protein per cup. So
now we're going to add 3 tablespoons of lemon juice. You can squeeze the lemon juice yourself. You can buy it already squeezed. We're going to add olive oil. So Kristen writes on there EVO. If anybody doesn't know what that means, it's extra virgin olive oil. So we're going to add the olive oil next. It's a pretty common clinical term used. Clinical. Culinary. All right, now we're going to add avocado. And we're going to add garlic. So I have it in cloves. You can also buy it already diced and cleaned. And if you like a lot of garlic, you can add extra garlic. I'm adding extra garlic because I love garlic.
And I think the neat thing that you do with the garlic is you kind of like puree it up like applesauce, so it doesn't get the little pieces the spicy little.
So let me talk to you about our garlic. So the fact that this is all getting processed together, I did use whole cloves. One of the things that I love to do with garlic ahead of time is we food process it just by itself so that it does look like a little bit of applesauce. What this helps with, it helps with consistency through the item that you're making, and then you don't get that big chunk that you might bite into by accident. Also, when you make soups, it tends to cream in better, and then you don't have garlic floating in your soup, and you might bite into that. Sometimes it's a little bit bitter. Might catch you off guard. So we do cream all our garlic in a food processor. So I'm just going to pause this. And as you're doing that, you could add a little bit more olive oil and it picks up. Very simple, very easy.
And the great thing about this recipe, it has a lot of really healthy fats with the avocado, with the olive oil. A lot of patients during cancer treatment are struggling to gain weight or keep weight on, and it's a great way to add calories in a healthy manner. Healthy fats don't take up a lot of room in your stomach, but they add a lot of nutritional impact. So,
yeah, I really.
Go ahead, Doc.
I was going to say, I really like this idea too. A lot of our radiation patients, at least, depending on what area we're radiating, if it's in the throat or in the esophagus, or our lung cancer patients, their esophagus gets a lot of the radiation as well. And so often swallowing itself is difficult. And so we're always looking for good, soft, easily swallowed foods that are high in calories, high in good sources of protein and fat. And this seems to kind of have it all.
Oh, that's great. So it creams right up. So as it creams up, I put it right in a bowl here, and you can serve it up with veggies. You just said soft food. So honestly, hummus can be served with anything or on anything. You hear people serving it on toast, on crackers. You could accompany it with fish or chicken and really get a lot of protein benefits to that. So while we're talking about this hummus, I did want to go over the cutting of an avocado that sometimes is a little challenging for people. So first of all, you want to make sure your avocado is right. So as I was prepping for this, of course, I had a few that weren't. So Kristen had a great suggestion of taking the avocado, putting it in a brown bag. She said with banana, whatever you think of to get it nice and soft, but definitely in a brown bag. But when it comes to cutting this, what's tricky is there's a big pit in the middle that's really hard, so you can't cut through it. So what I did is I took a paring knife, and you can take a regular chef's knife, and I just go around the avocado like so. Okay, because this is ripe, and another way you're going to know it's ripe, it's firm, but it's also got some softness to it. If it's really hard, it's not going to do this that easy. But you're going to cut on the outside of the avocado, and it's going to split open like that. Okay, so how do you get this big seed out? If it's ripe, it can just pop out with a spoon, like so, or you can go around the pit like this. Some people find it, you can hit it with a knife and turn it, and then it comes right out as it is right now, and it'll just pop right out. If it doesn't pop right out, I don't want to go flying, you can always cut around it with the spoon, like so, and just take it right out with a spoon. And then to get the most of your avocado, you could peel the outside with a paring knife, or go around the outside with a spoon as well, and it all just pops right out, just to make it easier. So sometimes people get a little afraid of avocados because they can't get the pit out. Don't let that be a fear, okay? Because they're delicious on everything. So I'm going to move my food processor, and we're going to move on to sweet potato shepherd's pie. So when you're doing the shepherd's pie, I want you to keep in mind that this has a variety of vegetables in it. So it does call for red peppers. That doesn't mean you have to use just red peppers. Pick any pepper that you like. I did get a note about that. Is green okay? Absolutely. Green, orange, they come in a rainbow of colors these days. So the more colorful, the better. But also, if you know that at this point, you really like green peppers and that's what you can get, all meats. Use green peppers or whatever peppers you want. It also has carrots in it. Any root vegetable would be fine, but carrots is great. You know, you got turnips, you got rutabaga, you got all kinds of root vegetables. We got acorn squash, butternut squash. Make it your own. None of these recipes are written in stone, like I said. It also has onions in it. Feel free to use any kind of onion that you like. It has spinach in it. I did use frozen. It's very easy, convenient to get at any time of the year. I also really am going to need the moisture in this dish, so that's why I kind of went with the frozen. It has mushrooms. Not everyone likes mushrooms. You don't have to put mushrooms in it. You can leave those out and sub in other vegetables that you do like. I do have white kidney beans in this, so I'm looking to make sure that I add a protein to this dish, but there's an array of beans. So the whole idea is, you know, you've got red kidney beans, you have garbanzo beans, you have black beans. The bean world is endless. Lentils, anything that you feel like you would like. And to be honest with you, if you're not a bean fan, once you get all this mixed together, you're probably not even going to know they're in there. So they're kind of like that hidden protein, but it's going to be delicious. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to saute all the vegetables. So let me bring up my little mini stove.
The one thing I was going to say I love about this recipe is that you use beans as the protein source, which I know nowadays all food, produce, protein sources, they're all really expensive now. So by substituting at least one meal a week with a non-meat source, such as like beans, like the beans in this dish can really help with your budget. I know a lot of times my patients that are undergoing cancer treatment, they have aversions to animal proteins, or sometimes they're hard to digest or tolerate, or even the smell of them can turn them off. So a lot of times they turn to beans as an alternative protein source. You can get them dried or even in can form. There's a lot of no salt added ones on the market now that are really inexpensive that can help with your budget as well.
Yeah, I was gonna echo something you said, Kristen, as well. Certainly a lot of patients who are getting chemotherapy traditionally, sometimes radiation patients as well, can definitely have changes in their sense of taste and smell. A lot of patients undergoing cancer treatment, obviously there's some nausea and vomiting involved. And so any of these things, if you find that you have aversions to certain flavors, we've been talking about garlic and onions and things like that. As Laura said, definitely feel free to make some substitutions if you find that there's a flavor profile that's not agreeing with you.
Another thing when it comes to cooking, I really like to do one pot, one pan if I can. No one wants to spend any extra time, especially during the holidays, washing dishes or being away from their family, having to be in the kitchen. Though we make that a family event, washing dishes in my family, because there's so many of us. But one pot, one pan would be great. We're going to add a little bit of olive oil to the bottom of this cast iron pan. So you're going to notice in the recipe I said, you know, saute this, put it in a casserole dish. And as I went through my recipe, I said, hey, why don't we use a cast iron pan, and I don't have to transfer anything. And that's, you know, some less dishes that somebody's going to have to do. So to this, we are going to add our red peppers. We're going to add some onions, carrots. Then we're going to add mushrooms. We're going to add everything together. Feed in our beans. I also have some Mrs. Dash here. So one of the reasons I use Mrs. Dash a lot is it has all these different spices already right in it. So you don't have to have like 10 different spices for this dish. So this is going to have our garlic in it, our onion, our pepper, has everything right in it. I'm going to add a little extra garlic though. So this is where the creamed garlic comes in. And I like a lot of garlic. We're going to saute that right up in this pan and cook it down.
I think the great thing too in this recipe is you use a lot of variety of vegetables, a lot of different colors. You know, everyone always asks, is there one food that's like this superfood that I should eat? And really it's a combination of all those different colors that contain a lot of, you hear like buzzwords like phytochemicals and antioxidants and carotenoids. You know, all those things are really good at helping protect your body from damage, helping to reduce inflammation. And that's where a lot of those compounds come from. So just look for those colorful, veggies to add to your diet.
I mean, look at that. I know it's all right there.
Kristen, you mentioned antioxidants. This is a common question that I get that's sort of marginally related. A lot of patients I see are taking, in addition to the regular, prescribed medications, often will take other vitamins and supplements and so forth. It's really important that you communicate with your doctors about what exactly you are taking. Certain types of things that you could take can interfere with your treatment as well. As far as antioxidants go, we certainly think of antioxidants as being important in cancer prevention. And I always tell patients that anything you get from your food is fair game, but certain cancer treatments, certain types of chemotherapy and radiation actually rely on oxidative damage to the cancer cells. And so taking super high doses of antioxidants in a supplement form could actually work against us. But the more you get from your food in general, it's going to be just fine.
And a lot of those supplements aren't regulated, so sometimes you don't really even know what's in them or what quantities.
Correct. There's not very much quality control in as far as how much actually makes it in there. Most of them are not going to be harmful, but like I said, we just like to know what it is you're taking, and we can talk further about what kind of evidence there may be behind any health claims that are made by various parties.
As this cooks down, we are going to add, I mixed the tomato paste and the water together. So that's really going to help our vegetables cook down.
And the thing with, switching to a plant-based diet, it doesn't have to be an all or nothing thing. You want to maybe just look for the majority of your meals in your diet to come from plants, whole grains. It's still okay if you want to add a little bit of meat and still be on a plant-based diet. Just really choose, the ones that are least processed when you are making those choices.
So once this is cooked down, we're going to make the topping. Now, there's a couple different ways you can make the topping. For the ease of the holidays, as you go through the store, you are seeing a lot of canned yams. And what do people normally do around the holidays with that is, let's make a casserole on top of the marshmallows. Well, we're not going to do that tonight. We're going to top our shepherd's pie with, you can either use a canned yam, but I wanted to show you a fresh one. So basically what you're going to do, this is what it's going to look like when we start. We're going to peel this down. You're going to cut the ends off, and then you can just peel it. So after you peel it, you're going to cut it up into small cubes. It's just the same as making homemade mashed potatoes. So once you cut it into cubes, you're going to simmer it in water and boil it till it gets soft. And then it's going to look like this right here. Okay. And then we want to add a little flavor to this. So I love to have levels of flavor in my food. It keeps me wanting to eat it. And it's just very, very appetite out to your palate. It just keeps you going and enhancing your flavor. So what I decided to do is I added a little bit of cinnamon. We're going to add cinnamon and nutmeg.
And the thing about sweet potatoes, they're actually a pretty cool superfood. They're actually one of the healthiest and probably least expensive vegetables out there. They actually are a great source of beta carotene. Think those orange foods like carrots and things like that. And in your body, beta carotene can actually be converted into vitamin A. That helps support your immune system. It can help your a healthy gut. So all those things are really great benefits for sweet potatoes.
We're going to add a tad bit of olive oil. And for a little bit of sweetness, a little bit of maple syrup. And because these are cooked so well, you can mash them up with a potato masher. I happen to have a whisk because they're so soft. Mash that up. Perfect. And then we're going to pour that right on top of our pie. We're going to evenly, I want you to be able to see. It smells delicious. Someday we're going to get back to in person so you can have samples of all of this. Okay. Then you're going to put that in the oven. You're going to cook that in the oven for, about 20 minutes. So everything's kind of cooked. You just want it to all solidify into one big, a shepherd's pie. So it has layers. And I'm going to show you a finished also product. You're going to sprinkle the top of this with browns, just maybe a little bit of cheese. If you don't do cheese, you can keep the cheese out. And then we want to keep it colorful. So when it comes out of the oven, we're going to sprinkle it with a little scallions.
One tip I always tell people with scallions is when you buy them at the store, just cut off the top, and then the bottom part with the bulb, you can actually just stick in a cup of water and they'll continue to sprout, or you can put them in a little pot with soil, and you'll never have to buy scallions again because they keep on regenerating. So it's an easy thing to have in your kitchen just to add a little seasoning to foods.
Plant-based shepherd's pie. I'm going to show you one that I have done from earlier. Dish it out. So this is the casserole version, and then this is the cast iron pan version. I'm going to put some on a plate for you to see. Right, that's what I'm having for dinner.
Laura, I might have missed, how much did you cook those vegetables on the stove top? Did they do most of their cooking in the oven, or you got them all soft?
I got them, the idea is most of them get soft on the stove top, and then when you put it in the oven, the sweet potato bakes and gets this nice caramelization crust on it, so it adds that other layer of flavor to it. But I did it right on the stove top. Most of the vegetables. You do want a little bit of moisture in there, and that's why I use the frozen spinach. And you do add a little water to the recipe with the tomato base, the puree as well. Okay, we're going to move on to roasted Brussels sprouts. So one of the things that I really like to do when I roast my vegetables, if I can fold in a protein while I'm doing that, I get another benefit level to the roasting of the vegetables. So one of the things with Brussels sprouts, some people either love them or you don't. One of the things that I have found when it comes to roasting vegetables, it adds in a layer of caramelization that really enhances the flavors, and I really like them roasted. Where they're boiled, maybe not so much. So roasting them, I really do enjoy. So I'm going to go over a recipe on how to roast Brussels sprouts, but keep in mind, if you want to do roasted asparagus or roasted carrots, you can roast all kinds of vegetables. So let's pull out our Brussels sprouts.
Laura, I'm going to just ask you a quick question while you're doing that. We had a question from one of our guests. They said they don't have a steamer. They've already chopped up the sweet potatoes. What would be the easiest way for them to cook them?
So the way I cook these sweet potatoes is I put them right on the stove top with just enough water to cover them, and I simmered them for about 10 to 12 minutes, and they softened right up. So the smaller that you cut the potato, the quicker it'll cook. Just keep your cuts consistent, and if you keep them small, they cook pretty quick.
Good. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so fresh Brussels sprouts. At this point of the year, you can find these everywhere. This is the season. We got a lot of root vegetables. So you're going to take your Brussels sprouts and you're going to cut the ends off and cut them in half. They cook a lot quicker that way and more consistent. If you have any browning on the outside, feel free to pull those leaves right off. They peel right off. There's all kinds of layers in here. So we have our Brussels sprouts. You can add your favorite protein. I have pecans. I have almonds, and for color, because color is everything, I have cran raisins. If you don't have cran raisins, you can use regular raisins. If you don't want that sweet aspect and you just want to go savory, you can leave these out. If you just want to have plain Brussels sprouts and no added protein or no fruit, that's fine. You can leave it out as well. But I would highly suggest it and at least try it, because once it's all roasted and laying, you know, on the pan or on the plate like that, you know, if you don't want to try the nuts or the cran raisins, you can work around them. You'll see they kind of separate out. So we're going to sprinkle in some cran raisins. I did this dish right here with almonds, so I'm going to do this with pecans.
The thought of, I would say if the thought of fresh Brussels sprouts kind of intimidates you, a hack that I do is I buy the steam in a bag ones, and I just cook them on the microwave for about half the time that it says, and then you can use them in this recipe also. So it's a little bit of a time saver.
All right, so now we have everything in our bowl except for our olive oil. So we can add a little bit of olive oil. And you only need a little bit. You'd be surprised how far it goes. And then we're going to add our Mrs. Dash.
Brussels sprouts also are great fiber source. And like we were mentioning before about screening for different types of cancer and colorectal cancer. So there's probable evidence, you know, that foods containing dietary fiber actually can decrease the risk of colorectal cancers.
Once you lightly toss them, you're just going to lay them on a cookie tray, just like so. We're going to roast them in the oven. So this is a finished product right here that I did do with almonds and cran raisins right here. You're going to see this beautiful brown color. That's your caramelization, and that really enhances the flavor of any roasted vegetables.
Not to add too many calories to this, but roasted Brussels are really good if you mix up a little honey with balsamic vinegar and kind of drizzle that over the top too.
That sounds delicious. Okay. I think you know about my next item, don't you? So our last and final item is rice pudding. So one of the things, it's kind of an old-fashioned dessert, but I enhanced it a little bit with some different ingredients. And I also wanted to let you know, when you look at this recipe, you're kind of like, okay, she used almond milk. And I used almond milk because we're working on plant-based, but feel free to use any kind of milk that you like. You know, there's all kinds out there now. There's oat milk, there's cashew milk, so I particularly would probably use skim milk because the majority of my house would probably then, you know, really like it and they're more familiar with skim milk. So this is super, super easy. Basically, it's a crock pot recipe, and this is another thing great around the holidays. You can put it in the crock pot, you can walk away and not worry about it. You could do that actually probably very easily with this vegetable shepherd's pie as well. So that's one thing, you know, put it in, walk away, and then you don't have to worry about it. So you're going to take your crock pot. I kind of have a larger crock pot, and we're going to put the following ingredients in a crock pot. I had the pleasure of making this early, and I did have a few people sample it, and they wanted to let me know when I'd be done tonight so that they could have some more. So let me go through this recipe really quick with you, and along the way, think of different ways that, you know, okay, my family would like that. Okay, yeah, I think I can do that. And it's a nice warm dessert, especially in the winter, you know, when it's cold out. I served this warm today. So let me pull up my crock pot for you.
So as Laura's doing that, I'm going to kind of touch upon, because I know this recipe has honey. We talked about honey, and a lot of times people ask about added sugars and, you know, how sugar affects cancer, or if it does or it doesn't. And really what I tell people is, you know, all cells, healthy and unhealthy, they use glucose, which is a form of sugar, for their energy supply. And so you really want to focus on those complex carbohydrates for your energy for the sugar. And things like honey actually can help strengthen your immune response. The bees are gathering pollen from local flowers, which can actually help with seasonal allergies and things like that. So a little bit of added sugar is okay in your diet.
Okay. So I started in the bottom of the crock pot. I put 2 cups of almond milk. Then I added 1 cup of brown rice. Then I added a tad bit of olive oil. I added cinnamon and nutmeg. If you have a favorite spice that you like during the holidays, I think ginger would go great in this. If you want to put a little bit of vanilla in here as well, that would go delicious. And one of the things when you go to serve this, you're going to make it your own and you're going to look for pops of color that'll really enhance this. All right, so besides that, it also calls for, like Kristen talked about, honey, a little bit of honey. If you want to use honey, maple syrup, you know, we're in Vermont, so it seems like maple is like a very popular flavor. So maple could be added to this as well. So I put this in the crock pot. I simmered it on high for 2 hours. Throughout that, I did go over, I stirred it once just to make sure, you know, that everything was looking good. I'll show you what it looks like. Okay. Oh my God, it smells delicious. So we have rice pudding, crock pot rice pudding, super, super easy. And to garnish this up, I have sliced apples. You could put a little sliced apples on there. I also think it would be really nice if you actually, when it was simmering, you could add a little bit of raisins to this as well. Kind of make it your own. I also have raspberries here. A couple raspberries on top. And then if you wanted to add, I toasted some almonds. Crock pot rice. Everybody see that?
Yeah.
Really easy. Now I'm gonna eat it now.
I have an important question. Could
Okay.
I use eggnog instead of milk?
Ooh, yeah, that sounds
Maybe
delicious.
too thick. Might be too thick.
Yeah. You might want to add a little water with it, thin it out, a little hot water, but that sounds good.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
What other grains could you use besides rice?
So you could also use, you know, obviously we have white rice. You could try barley. Barley would make a really nice rice pudding.
Make a barley.
We have quinoa. Quinoa would make a nice too as well. And you get more protein that way because quinoa is a little protein. Any questions?
Does anybody have any questions or, you know, favorite toppings that your family puts into rice pudding or shepherd's pie that you want to share with the group? You can type them into the chat and I'll share them as we're talking.
Laura, can you comment on doing this in a crock pot versus an oven?
The rice pudding?
Yeah.
Oh, very easily. Similar to like the shepherd's pie, if you want to use a casserole dish or a cast iron pan and put all the ingredients in there, I would bake it on 350. I would check it after, you know, 15 to 20 minutes. And it could, as long as there's enough liquid to cover the rice, it would simmer nicely in an oven. You could actually probably do it on a stovetop, so that's a great conversation. Not everybody has a crock pot. You could definitely do it on a stovetop. I would watch a little more closely on stovetop. You know, when you're cooking with milks and things like that, they tend to get scalded quickly. So you're just gonna want to stir them and cook it on low.
I actually end up recommending rice pudding to a lot of my patients, regardless of the time of year. It's a great way, again, to pack in a lot of calories into a relatively soft food. So if you're a patient who's struggling with getting enough calories in, you know, it's a little bit paradoxical, but you know, often patients will want to eat very healthy during cancer treatment, of course, which is good. But just eating straight up, you know, fiber and vegetables and so forth doesn't pack a lot of calories. And so, you know, the recommendations will vary from patient to patient, but this is a really great way to get the complex carbohydrates that are in the rice and really pack a lot of punch for whatever small amount of food you can stomach, you know. And as far as added sugar goes, same thing. You know, if you're struggling to get enough calories in, usually I'll tell most of my patients, I don't really care where the calories come from. You can cook everything in fat and butter, and as long as you're getting the calories in, right now isn't the time to be focused on what's going to cause you to lose weight. We want you to gain weight. But that's going to vary from patient to patient as well, of course.
So it sounds like a lot of these recipes, as you gave them and showed them to us today, are healthy plant-based recipes, fun things to try for the holidays. But as Dr. Vernon is saying, if you were in a situation where you did want to gain more calories, there's some things you can do to add in to make it a little bit more high calorie. Kristen, can you give some examples?
Yeah, a lot of the recipes I have people add extra olive oil just because each tablespoon's another 100 calories, but it doesn't take up a lot of space in their stomachs, and so it doesn't make them feel so much fuller. Things like that. Avocados we were talking about, they're actually a great mix-in for smoothies. Even if you don't like avocado, they kind of take on the flavor of whatever you're blending it with, and that kind of adds a lot of calories. Actually makes it like really creamy. So there's different ways, you could even take some of these recipes, and if you really want to have a little bit of meat added to them, the shepherd's pie, you could do like some ground turkey or ground chicken to it. You can modify these recipes really anyway. The nuts are another one.
Like whipped cream on their rice pudding, right?
Yeah. Well, the nuts too are another good one too. Those are really high in protein, high in calories, healthy fats. So those are another easy way. If chewing them or swallowing like nuts might be an issue, you can always do nut butters, almond butter, peanut butter. All those are great too.
There are certainly a lot of commercially available like whey proteins and things like that too. If you're making smoothies, it really doesn't change the consistency or flavor for the most part to throw a couple of scoops of that in there, and that adds a lot of pure protein. You can find those, athletes and bodybuilders like to throw those in there. Bananas, for that matter, are pretty good for calories and tend to make most things more palatable if you throw that into a smoothie.
And if you are looking for more plant-based proteins too, there are a lot of vegan protein powders out there too that are available. I also too sometimes have people mix in collagen. It's not a complete protein, so you don't want all of your protein obviously to come from it, but it's another tasteless powder that you can add into even your coffee or smoothies. It just mixes in really well, so it's another protein source there.
I did want to mention, I had a note from one of our participants that they did not get the actual recipe ahead of time today. We did send them out, so unfortunately we missed that one person, and we'll make sure that they get it. But if there's anybody else who only got the initial ingredients list and they don't have the actual recipe, please let us know. We'll make sure that that gets sent out to you.
And as you are preparing these items along the way, if you do come across and have questions about them, feel free to contact me. My email is on the bottom of the invite today.
So we did share some lovely recipes for the holidays. Do you have any suggestions for, best ways to, serve them? Would you wanted to give the rice pudding, out at a appetizer type thing where there's not plates and bowls and dishes? Do you have any tricks you can share with the people who are watching with us for serving some of these wonderful dishes at a holiday party?
Sure. So basically, when you have a bunch of people over and you're interested in serving different things, so if you wanted to serve them in something that's different or on something different, so one of the things that I like to do is if we have like fresh fruit, to serve it with fresh fruit, you could do the rice pudding definitely as a parfait item, shepherd's pie. You could serve inside, you could steam some squash and serve it inside the squash and just make it look prettier and present it differently that way. Hummus as well, you see people do celery sticks and they fill them with peanut butter. Feel free to do that with, red peppers or in celery sticks. You can always make little canals inside your cucumbers. You've seen that, different ways to serve things like that so that you can pick them up and eat them that way. When you have sliced cheese, you could top it with a little bit of hummus when you do your cheese trays and things like that so that they're bite-sized and then people could just pick them up that way.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I also like sometimes to use the actual fruit or vegetable as kind of like the vessel to serve it. So for example, with the shepherd's pie, if you use, say, acorn squash, you could use the outside as kind of like the little bowl and build your casserole in it and kind of bake it in the oven that way. So it makes little individual ones. It kind of looks fancy, but doesn't really take up too much more time.
Yeah, I was going to say one branch of my extended family traditionally will have rice pudding for dessert on Christmas Eve, and we'll always hide a whole almond in one of the cups of pudding, and then whoever gets that one at random gets like an additional special gift. I always thought that was a fun tradition.
Oh, that's fun.
Dr. Vernon or Dr. Schwartz, we've spoken quite a bit tonight about the recipes and how helpful they are for people while they're in treatment. Could either of you comment on the benefits of incorporating some plant-based recipes in your diet as far as cancer prevention goes?
Yeah, I mean, I would echo what Kristen was saying. Certainly, plant-based fiber has been linked with a decreased risk of colorectal cancer. Red meats and perhaps to an even greater degree, cured meats like bacon and hot dogs and bologna have been linked to gastric and esophageal cancer in higher doses. As with most foods, if you do choose to eat those foods in moderation, if you're not eating bacon for breakfast every single day, it's probably fine to have some of those things in your diet. But the general mantra that we go by in nutrition is to eat a wide variety of things, and you'll probably be getting most of the nutrients you need. But for the most part, the lion's share of that should be coming from plant sources.
Yeah, and I'll just add into that there is some pretty good information that women that have higher fat content in their diet are at higher risk for breast cancer. And being family doctor and dealing with all sorts of different diseases, certainly the classic disease that's preventable to a pretty significant degree with diet that's more plant-based would be cardiovascular disease, which is the #1 killer in the United States. So lots of good reasons to eat a diet that's more plant-based, lower in fat. And Kristen, I'd be interested in information you may have on risk of processed foods in the diet and health, and how that impacts on health and also probably body weight.
Yeah, actually, when I was looking up just some info for our talk tonight, I read that according to the American Cancer Society, an estimated 1.9 million cases of cancer are going to be diagnosed in 2022. And while some people have a higher genetic risk to develop cancer, research actually showed that nearly 25% of overall cancer cases could actually be prevented with diet and nutrition alone, and that most cancers can take up to 10 years or more to develop. So really, your everyday nutrition choices are really crucial in cancer prevention. So really, you should day by day, those choices that you make really can affect your health in the long run.
Yeah, we haven't said much about alcohol as well, but that's apropos for talking about the holidays. Certainly, breast cancer as well has been linked to moderate to heavy alcohol use, as well as some of the upper digestive tract cancers, as well as things like cardiovascular disease and weight and other general health implications. So keep that in mind as you pick up your holiday spirits.
Actually, if you check the SVMC page about 2 weeks ago, I think it was Black Friday, there's a healthy holiday challenge going on. And one of the things that myself and my coworker did was to change out alcoholic beverages with mocktails. So if you go to the SVMC webpage or the Facebook page, there's actually a bunch of recipes that we came up with mocktails that you can use this holiday season as well.
Oh, I don't have any other questions in the chat. I wanted to give our participants a chance to ask any other questions that they have. And Kristen, I love the idea of the mocktails. So we will be sending out an email after the presentation. We'll definitely make sure everybody's got the recipes again. And I think we can include a link to your mocktails so that we can round out people's holiday recipes. That will also have a very short survey that we'd ask you to take a couple of minutes to complete for us, as well as some information that our colleague from the American Cancer Society, Amy, who works on our colorectal cancer grant with us, shared in regards to healthy eating, and also a really nice source for cancer screening, you know, to just kind of see what are you eligible for. I don't see any other questions. Do any of our panelists have anything else they'd like to share?
Happy holidays, everybody.
Yes.
Well, I do want to thank all of our panelists for joining us this evening and sharing their expertise and time. And I want to thank Chef Laura for her culinary artistry this evening. That was really fun to see. And I think maybe I might walk over when this is finished and see if there's any leftover shepherd's pie. It looks delicious. And I really appreciate all of you for joining us and participating. It looks like you'll get a couple 7 minutes extra in your evening tonight. We really appreciate you joining us. The email that goes out will have some contact information. If you think of any questions afterwards, I can certainly make sure that we get answers to you. And this will be on CAT TV in the future, so you can watch it again if you'd like. Thank you very much, everyone, and happy holidays.
Happy holidays.